So imagine you are a reporter and you're in the United States Capitol and you just happen to come across a booklet that contains information between Texas Republican Senator Ted Cruz and a bunch of his donors. Well, Pablo Manríquez, I hope I pronounced that correct, found those papers and he posted them on Elon Musk X, used to be known as Twitter. But guess what? Elon's folks deleted his thread. No explanation as to why. Now, they'll let these white supremacists run their mouths with all kind of different stuff, but they deleted his information. So what did he discover? Well, Pablo Jones is right now from D.C. Pablo, glad to have you here. First of all, how to pronounce your last name? Did I get it correct?
You got it, Roland. It's Manriquez. Manriquez is, it depends on kind of like where you're from, but basically the consonants are the same.
All right, Manriquez. So we'll go with that. All right, Pablo. So what did you discover? First of all, before we get to that, what happened? How did you find it? Because folks tried to, you like it was something nefarious. No, that's not what happened.
No, not at all. So what happened was I went to the Capitol on Tuesday, and there was a vote. The last votes of the day typically involve the senators coming from their offices in the exterior office buildings to the Capitol building itself, vote, and then leave, right? But we still had a little bit of time before the vote, so I go down to the Senate refectory, which is sort of like an unmanned bodega where you can get a snack, where you can get sodas, where you get that kind of thing. But, they have security cameras in the refectory, so I'm going around looking for this soda that they didn't have. It was like a sugar-free orange soda that I like. When I look down, what do I see? But this folder right here. And this folder, which as you can see says United States Senate on it. Now, I'm an artist. I'm in my art studio right now. I was thinking to myself, man, I might be able to use this. So I pick up the folder, free folder, and I open it up. And what do I find? But 16 pages of briefing documents to Senator Ted Cruz, like literally, to Senator Ted Cruz. And what these briefing documents are is preparation for the senator, something he can quickly read before meeting with political donors, right? So we're talking 16 pages across 7 briefings. So the first briefing is Tuesday night at the Capitol Grill, which is right down the street from the United States Senate. Where he's going to meet with 8 donors who haven't paid up yet. They've pledged a combined total of $19,500 to Senator Cruz, but they have not paid up yet. So Ted Cruz is going to say, to politely say, pay up, right? But the really interesting documents, in my opinion, which is scrolling right now, are the ones in New York, right? So the next day, the junior senator from Texas, Ted Cruz, flies to New York to meet with a bunch of non-Texans, as far as I can tell, people have nothing to do with Texas, right? To ask them for insane amounts of money, right? Like their individual contributions that people can donate to, a politician, but they're around $3,000. In some cases here, he's asking for $119,000 to people like the Estee Lauder heir, Ambassador Ron Lauder, or Ambassador John Loeb, another really kind of big billionaire guy, a handler to Len Blatavnik, a close associate to Russian oligarchs connected to Vladimir Putin, a Ukrainian-born, Russian-educated guy, right? And these are the donor meetings that he's going to throughout the day in in New York City. So one at a time, it goes, 9 p.m. to 9 a.m. rather to 9 p.m., 6 meetings across New York City. So I take I knew immediately what I had. These are briefing documents. I've been around the Beltway. I've been around the swamp for a long time. I know what a briefing document looks like. So I take them upstairs to the press gallery where Steve Dennis from Bloomberg, Daniela Diaz from Politico, and Jordan Carnes are sitting. And I tell them what I have. I'm like, oh my God, I think this is a big deal. Like this has the entire itinerary for the next couple of days of Ted Cruz donor meetings. So I took them out one at a time, one page at a time. I placed them on the floor. I took my cell phone. I took pictures of each one and I started tweeting them in a thread, right? In a single thread. I said, I found these in the Senate refectory, a thread. And so one at a time, I post these donor documents. And they are up for approximately 4 hours, maybe 5 hours. And if I remember correctly, they were hovering around 3.5 million views at that point. So like these were out of the bag. The internet was not giving these back, and that's when they were stricken from X. Like they were taken down off the platform that I put on X, right? And, they said that they were a violation of X rules. In my humble opinion, that is actually a correct assessment. They were actually a violation of X's rules. You're not supposed to put addresses, personally identifying addresses and phone numbers of people on X. I have since reposted them without that information. I took a little bit of black paint and a paintbrush, and I redacted them last night. Very, I've never redacted anything before, so this was something new. And I posted them, and they are now on X. You can find them at capital.press if you want to see them. But what was interesting is that the removal of these documents created what a colleague has called the Streisand effect, which by removing them, they only made them more famous. So as soon as he removed them, it was just like, oh my God, why is this being censored? It piqued everyone's interest who wasn't already like actively engaged with these documents, which are fascinating, a fascinating glimpse, a pull back the curtain on the swamp, right? So over the next 24 hours or so, people from Ted Cruz's universe start reaching out to me, because I'm the reporter who posted these on X, and they've been taken off X, and what the heck is going on, right? And they start trending on the front page of Reddit. And if you really want to see an interesting discussion about these documents, our politics discussion on Reddit, fascinating. Like, how Reddit is, they'll get a lot of information there quickly, and obviously it needs to be verified. It's not always trustworthy, but like for the most part, the information that they've got about the names and places on these documents is a really interesting look into briefing documents that probably are not unique to Ted Cruz, that most lawmakers probably get, but it was Cruz or a staffer that left them, or presumably a staffer that left them in the refectory. And I mentioned the security cameras in the refectory because I think that's important. If I had tweeted that I'd found these in the bathroom or something like that, it could have been plausibly, who knows who left them there, right? And Ted Cruz is, kind of good at getting out of a corner, right? He will fight his way out of a cul-de-sac, as they say, right? In his political instincts. But now in the refectory, whoever left them there is footage of them leaving them there. And if this does become an issue for the Ethics Committee, which would have direct jurisdiction, the Senate Ethics Committee would have direct jurisdiction over the illegal use, or it's illegal to do campaign work in your official capacity as a senator. And when you are on the physical grounds of the United States Senate in our United States Capitol, it is completely, definitely inappropriate, but illegal, right, to be doing that work. So to find these documents in the refectory of the Senate, in the first floor of the Senate, where there are 2 security cameras, one over the cash register and one on the broader room, right? It does create a really interesting scenario. It does create a really interesting set of questions that I will be pursuing aggressively henceforth. Now, the Senate left today, and they're not back until August 8th, which sucks because I finally got Ted Cruz at the last vote of today. I tracked him down. I was waiting in the tunnels. My colleagues text me, he's upstairs on the second floor. I go bombing up the steps, right? And as soon as I get up the steps, I get to the steps that they're just like, he just went out the door. He went down the Senate steps. But as a report, only senators and their aides can go down the Senate steps. So I have to go all the way around through the building. And when I get out into the parking lot, he is getting into his car. There's a reporter from ABC News who's asking him a final question. And I finally got to him, like, Senator, any comments on the secret campaign fundraising documents that I posted, And he just looks at me with a big Ted Cruz smile, like, nah. N-A-H, nah. And drove away. So more to follow. You know what I mean? This is going to be a slow-moving story.
First of all,
yeah.
So, but here's the deal, though. But by finding the documents, what it does is it gives people an inside peek to how nefarious these folks are, how they are controlled by donors, how much time they spend, and how they cater to folks. And here's what I love what you said when you said, oh, he's running around trying to get these people who know nothing, who are not from Texas, don't have interest in Texas. Look, I'm born and raised in Texas. I'm still registered to vote in Texas. And so this is how the politics works. And as you said, they're not supposed to be doing this on the grounds, but the fact of the matter is they do. And so I'm sure that whoever that staffer was, they probably don't have a job by now by this getting out. But
the camera would know. And,
okay,
and you gotta remember, Cruz liked the tweet a couple years ago that was a porn tweet, right? Like, and he blamed it on a staffer. He was like, "Oh, that was just a staffer using my Twitter account," right? Now, the rumor is that staffer made it because, Ted Cruz is a political animal, and the smartest thing you can do in this situation is to go tell the donors when you meet with them in New York, yeah, this staffer has been fired, right? I apologize that your information was put on the internet, right? But then you go to that staffer behind the scenes and say, listen, I'm keeping you, obviously, right? But now you owe me your career, Because he didn't put the staffer out to the wolves who allegedly liked the tweet, right? And again, this is just my hypothesis. This is not confirmed reporting, but we're not going to be able to confirm any reporting until they get back on July 18th, right? July 8th, after the 4th of July break. But yeah, I don't think that the staffer got fired. A lot of people, to answer your question, I think your question, I don't think the staffer got fired. That would not be Ted Cruz's style.
Well, the thing here, again, I hope people understand that donors run politics, not voters. They pay attention to donors. Questions from the panel or comments. Lauren, you're first.
Pablo, you're a painter.
Yes, ma'am.
Your paintings are up in the press gallery on the third floor, correct? In the radio TV gallery.
Oh my God, they totally are. Yes,
they're quite good. I've seen them.
Thank you so much.
So as a staffer on a few political campaigns, those documents are really familiar to me. And it actually is not that uncommon that people leave things like this around and they get found by somebody in this way. But it is an interesting inside look. Typically, donor lists are shared by the same party. The donors are shared by the same party. And of course, the meetings and the staffing and the briefing are kind of a familiar thing. I used to I worked in the U.S. Senate in another life. And so has anybody approached you? It's really not in any way theft, of course, but none of the police or anything like that have bothered you, correct?
Correct. No, I have gotten no reprimand from anybody, including Ted Cruz and his staff. Everyone, except for a couple of randos on the internet, have said, yeah, this guy just did. There is a question as to whether or not I should have shared the addresses and the phone numbers.
Yeah.
And to avoid getting them stricken again on X, if I find another folder full of gold, then I will. I brought a tube of paint and a paintbrush to the Senate that's at my desk above the Senate in the radio TV gallery, actually, where the paintings are. So next time I find them, I'll just run up there real quick. Boop, 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 boop. But they're going back on Twitter, so the staffers should know, right? They should keep track of these folders, or whoever has them. But honestly, the building should know, and America should know, that they should not be fundraising in the building. That's not acceptable under no founding father or anybody else thought that was what that building was going to be for. It's unacceptable. It's illegal, right? And frankly, I want to see who left it there. I want the Senate Rules Committee Chair Amy Klobuchar and the Senate Rules Committee Ranking Member Mike Lee, right, to get the tape and
now, Pablo,
refer it to the Ethics Committee.
What you found, though, did not – I just looked really quick at your Substack, at the documents. Did one of the briefings indicate that a meeting, a fundraising meeting, was going to be in the U.S. Capitol? Or was it just that you found the documents that makes you think that – because, in fact, a staffer can carry the documents in, but you're correct, they cannot fundraise in the U.S. Capitol. So did one of the briefings – was a briefing to take place in the U.S. Capitol?
No briefing in the Capitol at all.
Okay.
So it could be the case that like a staffer, I guess if I was making a plausibly deniable scenario for myself, if I was that staffer, I'd say something to the effect of, well, I came in with the notebook and then I left it there, but I really had grabbed the wrong notebook, this policy notebook about the latest law Senator Ted Cruz has been put in. was in the car, right? But it's tainting. There's a funk to it. And I think that people get that, and no one is going to believe that it's not happening in the building when a folder that says United States Senate, not Ted Cruz for Texas, but United States Senate on it, is full of these documents.
Right.
You know what I mean? That's my thought.
Hold tight. Hold on one second. I need to go. I'm running out of time. Let me quickly go to my other two panelists. Reese, go.
I just want to know.
Hold on, guys. Kill the music.
I just want to know, is there any indication that Senator Cruz actually took these meetings that were scheduled for yesterday, or if he took any number of them?
I was not able to ask that question today because I got him getting into the car, but I am looking forward to asking those questions when he returns on July 8th. No, to answer your question, not yet. He has not admitted to the meetings, and the people who he was supposed to have met with have not confirmed them.
Greg Carr?
Thank you, Roland, and thank you, Mr. Manriquez. We know that dialing for dollars is how everybody gets elected these days. It's been very insightful to hear reporters talk about this. So what impact do you think something like this might have on, say, for example, the Cruz Aldred Senate campaign?
Well, if I'm Colin Allred, given that a lot of these donors were former Hillary donors, that to me is something that's really interesting, and it kind of tears at Ted Cruz's credibility as a far-right darling. I mean, he gets on his whole thing is own the libs, and yet he's going to New York City, a place that he complains about constantly as being crime-ridden and terrible, to fundraise from Hillary Clinton donors, the donors of the pariah of the far right. So there are so many contradictions in here that I think that, if there's a small impact, at least the messaging that can happen, is Colin Allred could capitalize on that. But overall, it's also just sort of when you break a story like this, people come out of the woodwork from the orbit of someone who I've found over the last 36 hours since this happened is one of the most loathed people in politics. So if anything, it's more like the reporting to come that I think that Colin Allred's campaign, I don't know if they're going to participate in it or not. I haven't really reached, I've spoken with them. They reached out to me about this, but I don't have anything in particular related to that because I'm a Hill reporter. I'm very hermetical in my beat. I'm not going to Texas to cover this or anything like that. I'm going to stay on Capitol Hill and keep finding more folders full of things so I can post them on the internet and come on the legendary Roland Martin show.
Yes.
Well, again, as a Texas voter, I am very interested in this. Latest poll out shows Colin Allred is having trouble with name recognition. He's down 11 points to Senator Ted Cruz. And so he's got a lot of work to do over the next 5 months to make that ground up. Pablo, great work. We surely appreciate it. And let's see what happens next.
Thank you for having me on, Roland.
Thanks so much.
When COVID happened, poor people were dying at a rate already of 800 people a day. Before COVID, if you went to a funeral every single day, it would take you 600 years to attend all the funerals of the people who will die from the ravages of policy violence, poverty, and low wages in America in just 1 year. It would take you 2 years and 19 days to go to all of the funerals of the people that will die today, and oftentimes silence. Nobody talks about this political genocide, but we are determined today to remember their death and be a resurrection of voting power and voice power like never before.
Economic justice and saving this democracy are deeply connected. We, as a nation, must listen to the demands of the poor, who are pushing and will continue to push political candidates and elected leaders to lift from the bottom so that everybody can rise.
We are the poor, the marginalized, and the underpaid. And we are taking one step forward to say that everybody has a right to live.
Poverty is not the fault of those who are impoverished. It is caused by those who make the policy.
There are over 135 million poor and low-wage, low-income people in this nation. The biggest block of potential voters by far is low-income, low-wage voters.
I can't afford medicine. Sometimes I have to skip because of the cost.
The farm worker community is tired of the violence imposed upon us by greed, exclusion, and denial of basic human rights.
Those folk that represented by that casket, poor and low-wage workers who are the most moral people in this country because they go to work every day believing, even though going to work is hazardous to their health.
I'm tired of working 70 to 80 hours a week and still not have money for the necessity of bills. I'm tired of getting sick and not being able to go see the doctor, having to make a choice to pay between rent or the light bill or food or clothes.
You cannot claim to care about families and a culture of life and then do everything in your power to rob people of equal access to resources and to force them to live in poverty.
Leadership of both parties have waged war on poor people and low-wage workers.
And this government has treated people experiencing poverty, including their military families, with disdainful, deliberate, malicious neglect.
So the truth is that my son died from poverty.
We refuse to accept poverty as the fourth leading cause of death.
The fourth leading cause of death in this, the richest country in the world.
We march today for our children and the generations to come.
And we need to do it with the loudest voices possible, the biggest actions possible.
We will voice our demands and register our vote.
When we stand up and when we stand together, things change.
There is the electorate that is, and then there is the electorate that should be.
34 million eligible poor and low-income voters did not vote in 2016. If just 20% of those voters in swing states were mobilized around an agenda, they could change the political outcome of every election. So we're launching the most massive voter mobilization and turnout campaign in history of poor and low-wage voters, allies, and religious leaders.
People are dying, but we know it doesn't have to be this way. And so we are calling on everyone to join us in this Poor People's Campaign, a national call for more revival.
We are here, we will be seen, we will be heard, and our power will be felt. We don't need to be an insurrection. We are a resurrection that will be felt across this country. Are you ready? 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 We are a resurrection, and we are ready.